For being here at the last event in the American section of the Great American. We are really, really happy that you're here and really grateful to you in ways that we will not be able to explain when you are being thrust through a signing line very quickly because there are nice people who are 800th in line. But we really are very, very grateful and it is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I want to talk a little bit about The Fault in Our Stars and how I came to write it. But in order to do that, I want to begin by making sort of a broad observation, which is that you choose what to think about. Even when you don't feel like you're making that choice, you usually are. And I will acknowledge that the choice can be circumscribed. It can, for instance, be circumscribed by if you have a headache, it can be difficult to think about anything other than your headache. If you don't feel well, it can be difficult to think about anything other than the fact that you don't feel well. If you just got dumped by a girl, it can be difficult to think about anything other than how great she was and whatever. There is no question that your thinking is circumscribed by circumstance. However, you choose what to think about. And that is one of the very few true choices that we have in this world. And I believe that we must choose wisely, because what we choose to think about orients our lives toward whatever we're going to do while we're here. That's how we spend our consciousness. And I'm using the word spend literally because it will be spent and then you will be dead. I'm sorry if that's funny. I don't find it funny. I find it alarming. And so I want to spend my consciousness in the best possible way, and I think probably most of you do as well, and certainly the two kids at the center of this novel, Hazel and Augustus, want to spend the time that they have as conscious beings in this world as well as they can spend it. And that's really difficult to do, because there are a lot of different models for what constitutes a good life or a heroic life. And you've got to think hard about which model you're going to embrace, because the time that you spend embracing that model and orienting your life in that direction is going to be ultimately time that you can't get back, literally. Trust me, I'm older than most of you. So there are a bunch of models of like a good life in this world. My grandfather just died, he was 92 years old. When I was at his funeral, over and over again, people told me, your grandfather was a good, full life. And that's true, but he also lived to be 92, which is a huge statistical advantage. Many of us, unfortunately, won't live to be 92. And even if we do, trust me, those of you who've ever watched an episode of Jersey Shore know that it is easy to waste 30 minutes. Well, let me tell, I'm sorry, by the way, Snooki's here. I don't mean that personally, Snooki. I know you're a fellow author, and I'm trying to take care of yourself. It is possible to waste 30 minutes, it is possible to waste 30 years. The question of how to have a good, full life, even if you don't have a long life, is the question that haunted me while I was writing this book over the last 12 years. I worked as a student chaplain at a children's hospital almost 12 years ago, for about 5 months, which isn't a very long period of time. I have great admiration for the people who actually do it and don't chicken out like I did. But it was really difficult work because I spent a lot of time with sick and dying children and with their families, and that is painful, difficult stuff to do. And for many, many years afterwards, I would write about this time. And when I was writing about it, there were these characters, this boy and this girl, and there were also lots of other characters as well who eventually fell by the wayside. But the central character of that story was always this dashingly handsome 22-year-old hospital chap. It was all like, I wish I were kidding. It was all like, which hot doctor will he choose, you know? Like, bad Grey's Anatomy with some theology in it. So that was with me because I was trying to write a story for me. I was trying to process what I'd seen, what I'd lived through, how difficult it had been for me, in a way that wasn't a gift to you, in a way that wasn't going to be something that was helpful to you. And over again, my editor would be like, there's some really interesting stuff here, but this chaplain is killed. And I'd be like, no, the chaplain is the center of the thing. Finally, in 2008, I made the acquaintance of a young woman named Esther Earle, who's a really important part of our community. For those of you who thought you were coming to a book signing, my brother and I make YouTube videos, and that's why almost everyone's here. The community of people that has sprung up around our videos is called the Nerdfighter community, because we fight for nerd culture and nerdiness, and we fight to celebrate intellectualism. And Esther was a really important part of the Nerdfighter community. She was a core member of the group of people who maintained the amazing Tumblr F Yeah Nerdfighters, formerly known as curse word Yeah Nerdfighters, that I made him change. Also did a lot of work on the Project for Awesome and many other really important charity projects that our community has been a part of. And when I met Esther in 2008, she was already sick with cancer. I didn't know at the time how sick she was, but she died in 2010. And in the 2.5 years that I knew her and came to know and have great affection for her family and her friends, and became friends with the community of people who supported her through her life, and who also she supported through our lives, she was able to draw me out of the story. And so it didn't have to be about me. It could be about these two kids and their love for each other and their struggle to find what's going to be a heroic life, even if it isn't a long life. And on that subject, well, first let me say that you can donate tonight to the organization This Star Won't Go Out that Esther's family set up in her honor. All the money from that organization goes to kids with cancer and their families. It's a really great organization. We've been supporting it on the whole tour, up to $500 tonight. Your donations will be matched, but there are a lot of you, so hopefully there will be more than $500. But if it's less than $500, then you basically just cost yourselves money. I'm oversimplifying economics a little bit. That's basically what it is. Last night we went over $20,000 for money raised on the tour so far, so that's really awesome. So, okay, before I bring up our next guest, I want to say a little bit about this book specifically, and how these kids model the idea of heroism, or how they take it. So there's a lot of ways that you can imagine a not long heroic life, but like the oldest and most famous way is the way that's imagined in the Odyssey, which is a book that, if you haven't read, I'm about to ruin the plot for you, but I promise it's still good, even if you have the plot ruined for you. There's this dude, he goes to war, he does some really good warring, and then he has to come home, but it takes forever. Problems. It takes like 40 years. It's ridiculous. It's frankly, literally ridiculous. All the things that he comes across. Finally gets home, and there's all these guys, these gentlemen, although in lieu of their behavior one uses the term loosely, suitors, and also a bunch of young ladies, again, using the term loosely, who have started hanging out at his house and like mooching off of him and everything else. And he's unhappy about this, as one would be, but look, there's no text messaging. There was no way that anyone could have known that this guy was fine. He was just taking his sweet time getting home. And the actual heroic response to this is to be like, hey, y'all should go. And his response is to murder 110 people and the palace floors coursed with blood, and etc. And that's your happily ever after. That's your heroism. There is a similar model of heroism that is put forth by first-person shooter video games, which for better or worse are today's heroic epics, in which a guy, for some reason, has to kill a lot of people very virtuously, and then probably make a sacrifice that will result in his death. But fortunately, you can hit continue. That's the model of heroism that Augustus Waters has been born into. It's the model of heroism that we've all been born into. And it's the one that he must live with as he struggles to find what the meaning of his life is going to be, what the orientation of his life is going to be. And Hazel has to deal with that as well, but Hazel has to deal with it in this real and visceral way because she knows that her cancer is not curable, and she knows that her life expectancy looks nothing like the life expectancy of the rest of us. I want to talk more about heroism and how our imagining of it shapes the way we end up living our lives. But in order to do that, I feel like it would best be done in song. And as some of you may know, I cannot sing. However, I am fortunate to have an extraordinarily talented brother. So I want to introduce, for those of you who don't know who Hank is, and there are some of you, I want to introduce my brother to you by saying first that among his many accomplishments is being my brother. FTV Records, the world's most awesome record company. He also created VidCon, the world's largest online video conference. And he created the Project for Awesome, YouTube's largest and most awesome charity fundraiser annual thing. Which is not even to mention the fact that he founded EcoGeek.org, the world's largest environmental technology website, or that he is the inventor of 2D glasses. Which render three-dimensional movies in a crisp 2 dimensions. And in 1998, his classmates at Winter Park High School voted him Best Dancer. Ladies and gentlemen, Hank Williams.